Thank you so much for coming. We
Yes.
chose the title for this presentation on the screen, Keeping Our Children Safe, the Whole Village Approach. And I'll say a little bit more about that later, the whole village concept. And I think that's what we have here. We have a small village. We have concerned community members. We have interested parents, children, teachers, administrators, because it takes all of us to solve problems together. And part of this evening's presentation will be a discussion of how we can work even more effectively together to resolve the kinds of issues with which schools deal. We hear an awful lot about the problem of bullying and harassment and intimidation, and yet there's not a whole lot said about solutions other than we tell our young people that they should take a stand, that they should do something, but we don't really give them the tools to know how to do that. And it's not an easy thing to do. It's not easy for adults, and it's certainly not easy for young people. And so this evening, in the time that we have together, we will talk about how to build the partnership with the school and also share with you some very practical hands-on strategies and tools that you can rehearse with your children at home or your students in class, because the language doesn't necessarily come naturally. We have to practice and rehearse. And in fact, that's how this all started. Rick's been a good friend of mine for a long time, and as you'll find out very shortly, he's very wise and he has a way with words and language. And every now and then, over the past years, I found that myself in a situation where I had to have a difficult conversation with someone. And so I had to use very strategic language in order to express my problem, concern, or offer criticism of some kind. And that's not easy to do. So I'd pick up the phone and phone Rick in Florida and say, Rick, how does this sound? Do you think this would be an effective way for me to express my feelings about this? And we'd talk about it a little, and he'd give me some wiser words to use. And then in one of these conversations, we said, wait a minute, here we are as adults struggling with this. It's such an easy concept. Why are we not teaching this to our children and to our youth? And the concept was that of the goodwill sandwich. We'll talk more about that later. And so that's how this whole project started, where we thought the best way to do that is to write a children's story in which a child learns how to use the goodwill sandwich. And that was the first book, and then the second one came, and the third one, and who knows how many more we have in us. But that's our goal tonight, is to share these with you, but then you have them to take home as well so that you can read them at your leisure.
One of the things that Hetty and I want to do is acknowledge, thank you for being here tonight, for having interest in a subject that is near and dear to the staff at Oxford and to us as well, because we're interested in looking at the whole person, not just their brain that we fill with information so they can make us look good at tests. We really want people to become citizens of the world with skills to be good husbands, wives, employers, employees. And as the Dalai Lama says, I think all of us in this room would agree that it is through education, through training the mind and the heart while using intelligence, that we can see the value of compassion and the harmfulness of anger and hatred. When we think about the invitation that we had to join you tonight, we're very grateful that you have the value for the mind and the heart, and know that the only common experience all of us have is education. So what better place than schools to learn not just the academic subjects, but the skills of living that will allow us to navigate the difficult tasks of becoming a strong, assertive, and compassionate person in the world.
I have the most wonderful job, if you could call it a job. I get to travel all over the world and visit with teachers and school community groups and talk with them about their hopes, their vision, their needs, their challenges. And wherever I go, no matter where it is, people tell me that their one goal, their one wish for their children is that they can grow up to be caring and compassionate citizens, and this includes that they learn to make responsible decisions, that they learn to feel empathy for other people, that they stand up for others, solve their problems effectively, and resolve conflict peacefully. And I'm on a personal campaign. I have been since for the last 15 years, and that is to promote among the decision makers at the department level and the board level the need to infuse these lessons in daily life in the classroom, because in my opinion they are as important, and I might say even more important, than some of the other things that we teach and we learn in school. Also, parents share with me, when I speak with them, that they worry far more about the physical and the emotional well-being of their children than they worry about what they are learning in school and their academic progress. When I used to kiss my own two sons goodbye in the morning as they left for school, I worried far more about whether or not they would return at the end of the day feeling happy, enthused, eager to go back the next day, than I ever worried about whether or not they were adequately learning the organs of the digestive system. And I dare say most parents would say the same thing. I think that all children have a right to feel safe in school. It's not a luxury or a privilege, it's a right that they have, and therefore it's our responsibility to ensure that they do feel safe in school to the best of our ability. My own sons, when they were younger, and this was a long time ago because Joe on the right is 30 years old now and just is expecting his first child, but they were very privileged to attend a unique school almost across the street from where Rick lives in Florida. Unity, it's called, Unity Elementary School. Very unique school because there the teachers developed a special curriculum called Lessons in Living, and essentially these are lessons that teach the children at Unity how to live well with others. I used to wonder, a little bit skeptical at the time, I used to wonder, well, that's all well and good. While the children are here at Unity School, they know what's expected of them, and they behave in this expected manner. But what happens when they go out into the community and back to their homes? Are the lessons internalized and transferred into real-life situations, or are they simply reserved for this is how we act at Unity School? And my favorite story is one in which that question was answered when one day Ben and I were on the beach. He was about 7 years old, and he had spent quite a long time making a very elaborate and a beautiful sand castle when another boy walked over, seemed to appear out of nowhere, and with a kick he destroyed the sand castle. So I wondered with great curiosity, what would Ben do? He simply walked over, he sat down beside me, he looked up at me and he said, "Mom, I think that boy could use some lessons in living." So at the tender age of 7, he understood that if all children could learn these kinds of valuable life lessons, they wouldn't do what that boy did. We returned to Halifax after 6 years in Florida, and when Ben was 14 years of age and in grade 9, he was being bullied by a classmate, and we didn't know about it for quite a long time until one evening he shared it with us, what had been happening. And we went to see the school administrator and a few teachers, and we told them what Ben had shared with us. They were not aware as well, because it happened in unsupervised and unstructured areas. The school reassured us that they would handle the problem, and so we went home feeling comforted that the problem would be dealt with. However, not very long after the meeting, Ben was in the gymnasium watching a basketball game when the boy who had been bullying him rushed across the gym floor and hip-checked him, causing Ben to fall, and the fall was severe enough that an artery in his back severed, and he died that night as a result of that injury. And I was teaching at the time, and so I decided that I would start teaching lessons in living in my classroom, and I was willing to be fired for it because it certainly was not a part of the official Nova Scotia curriculum, but to me it was important enough that I started teaching those lessons. Fast forward about 10 years later, I realized that schools in many parts of Nova Scotia and in other countries were working hard at teaching these kinds of lessons in a sort of haphazard way, without any kind of support, without resources, simply because teachers know that this is the right thing to do. And so in 2001, I started an organization, a charitable organization, called Peaceful Schools International, and we offer support and training and recognition to schools like Oxford School that are working very diligently to create a school climate in which children feel safe and valued and respected. And Peaceful Schools International acts as a catalyst and a clearinghouse for practical resources like the kit that you have this evening. Schools celebrate when they feel they're ready. They fly a flag, and it acts as a symbol to everyone entering the building each day that we are committed to creating and sustaining a culture of peace in this school.